Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Carlton People. Today I've got a Blue Abroad. He's embodies everything that this channel is all about. Carlton fans all over the world. Speak of Julian, mate, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Give the fans a bit of an idea as to what makes you a Blue Abroad and where you've been.
Right. Well, yeah, I've been living here in Japan for over 20 years. And I first hooked up with Blue Abroad, I think, when right near the beginning. And there was the instant connection being a Blue Abroad.
Yeah. We've was just saying before we hit record, it's been a while since I was abroad. That is outside of Australia. But I think those who don't live in Australia and, especially in countries where the game is completely unrecognizable, you don't have that cafe culture. You go in, see the newspaper, read it. Like, it's not sort of in your face. So it's nice to have a place where everybody around the world who follows the club can come and tune into something and be a part of something.
Yeah, it's great.
So, Julian, how did you become a Carlton supporter? What's your story? How does it start?
Well, it all started with my father. He first took me to Princes Park when I was about 4 or 5 years old. And he was born opposite Princes Park. So that was where it all started from him.
Yeah, right. And he just bestowed the club onto you, and that was it?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, him and all the family and all my relatives are pretty much all Blues supporters.
Yeah, right. So how far back does your memory go? What's your first vision in your mind when you think about Carlton?
Right. My first memories are sitting or standing behind the old scoreboard on beer cans and seeing players like Sid Jackson and Jezza and Jeff Southby and and the glory days.
The legends, mate. I like to refer to you as somebody who is part of the golden era, the golden children who just were born into this great club and didn't really experience too many rebuilds, I wouldn't have thought.
No, it was it was just almost in the finals every year, and that's where I guess a lot of the Carlton arrogance comes from. Just we're expected to be there.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, when you're there for as many decades as we were, I guess it makes sense. And I guess your childhood, your teenage years, they would have been fun.
Oh God, yeah, amazing. And the days of Princes Park were just unbelievable. It was like a fortress in those days, and we just never lost there. It was just fantastic.
Yeah. Do you recall some of your favorites in terms of the games you were at Princess Park, or were they more at the MCG?
Most of my favourite games were at Princes Park. There's some unforgettable incidents I'll never forget. I'll never forget Jezza getting shirt fronted by Stan Magro and from Collingwood, and all the hoo-ha that went on. And a lot of Blue supporters my age never forget when we played Geelong at Princes Park, and Darren Milburn got sauce, and like Carlton supporters were going on about it for years and years afterwards. Everyone hated Milburn, and then there's like the highlights, like Bazasto's mark in front of the goals, unforgettable, brilliant.
It's funny you mentioned the Jezza incident. In the previous episode, which I actually recorded earlier today with a gentleman named Stephen Reitman, he mentioned the Jezzalenko incident, and I wasn't aware of it, to be honest. I mean, I'm familiar with the Melbourne knock on Silvani, and we were booing Melbourne up until 2010. Like, I remember it very clearly. But the Jezelenko incident, I guess, there's we love all our players, and we always have. But I think there are certain players which we love a little bit more, maybe because what they've done for the club, the success that they've had. And I guess Jezza was one of them. What do you remember about that day?
I just remember the anger with all the Carlton supporters. It was pretty similar to Silvani. Yeah, like you're saying, everyone loved Jezza and Silvani. And yeah, it was like, how dare you do that to, he's like Jezza's like a god to us. It was shocking.
Yeah, right. So did you get to see premierships live at the MCG? Did you watch them on TV? What was your experience with the Flags?
Well, my first ever grand final was in 1979. And I was there with my father right up at the highest point of the G and looking down. And what a grand final for my first game and first grand final. And I'll just never forget Wayne Harms when he kicked the ball from the center of the ground, chased his kick the whole way down. A lot of people only talk about how he punched it back in. But the thing was that he'd actually kicked it himself from the centre, chased his own kick, and then punched it back into Kenny Sheldon, who kicked the winning goal. And after that, I mean, Wayne Harms was my hero. Never forgot that.
Yeah, that's it's interesting. That would be one of the most. It still is one of the more scrutinized moments, and I guess now, as we fast forward many years in 2023, going into 2024 with social media and the extra angles of coverage that we get, I can only imagine what a moment like that would be like in today's day and age.
Yeah, no, it was super special. It's just to have such a performance by one individual player. It's just incredible. And of course with Harms, it wasn't just then. I mean, he was just such a brilliant player. And the amazing thing about it too was he was the first player to win the Norm Smith medal in that year, and he was actually the nephew of Norm Smith too.
Oh wow, there you go. I did not know that. Yeah. What about after the grand final? What were the scenes like after that?
I can't remember that so well, but yeah, I'm pretty sure Lygon Street would have been absolutely buzzing for sure.
Yeah. So when do you pick up and leave Australia?
Well, I first came here back in '84, and I was an exchange student then. And I'll never forget those days. This is before pre-internet, and I used to sit on the roof of my school with a shortwave radio, listening to the footy, and that was the only way I could get the footy.
That's phenomenal. What do you tune into? Like, what's the station called if you're around the world and tuning in via radio?
Oh, I think it was Radio Australia.
Okay. It never ceases to amaze me visualizing. I mean, I remember listening to footy on the radio, but I guess for me, I was born in 91, so I always had access to at least watching the game. If I wasn't there, it was all there. I grew up in a time where you could watch the games because they were televised a lot more than what they used to be. But I guess, I don't know, maybe you can talk on this. Back then, I mean, there was no other alternative, so you weren't aware of any other way to consume the game, and it almost makes the game a little bit more of a fantasy because you've got a picture in your head what you're hearing, right?
Yeah. Oh, I spent so many times when I wasn't at the footy, or even at the footy, listening to it on the radio, because we didn't have on TV. Only maybe a quarter. If we're lucky. So yeah,
Yep.
it was the radio was so important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why Japan? You said you went there on exchange, but like, what made you stay? I mean, you've been there for a while, so I guess you must enjoy it.
Yeah, well, after being an exchange student, I just fell in love with the place, and it's always been really good to me. Yeah, it's a very special place.
Whereabouts in Japan are you located?
I'm in Kyoto, so the cultural heart of Japan, pretty
Yeah.
much.
Have you made any? Have you converted any new friends to the Carlton Football Club?
Well, I've been very lucky. My old job, I met this Aussie guy, and it turned out he was a Carlton supporter too. So when we both got days off at the same time, we go to sports bars and watch the Blues. And so we're trying to figure out what we're going to do when we finally make the grand final, hopefully next year, because he normally works on Saturdays. So his plan is to take a sickie, and then we'll hopefully both get to a sports bar and watch the grand final.
Yeah, right. When's the last time you saw a game in Melbourne or in Australia?
Well, I went last year. Yeah, last year, and I went to the game against. I saw the Crows in Adelaide. That disappointing game, and but I saw us beat the Giants, which was fantastic because that was like the first time I'd seen us win a game live in God knows how many years. I mean, some of the games that I saw when I went home, and I'll never forget. I went to years ago, was it 2019 or something, when they had that terrible game against the Giants when the Giants had 17 men and still thrashed us by over 100 points. So I was going to games like that. And so, yeah, it was finally great to get a win under my belt and beating the Giants after that too.
Yeah. Listen, it's been a journey. We've waited. We've gone through one rebuild. It didn't work. We've gone through another one. It finally seems like we're on the right path with this group. What do you make of this group? I don't know if we call it the new group because they've been around for nearly a decade now. But what do you make of this group now and what they were able to achieve in 2023?
Well, what's really got me is the build and the way they actually did it. I mean, the whole problem, the reason I see that Carlton was so bad for so long was that we weren't able to change with the times. You know, you used to just get out the wallet and buy all the big players. You know, the Kernahans and the Bradleys and all these players, and it took for us to finally realize that we had to do it by getting into the draft. And you know, ironically, it was Sauce that did that, and which is ironic considering he was partly responsible for the mess that they were in with the salary cap breaches that happened. But yeah, I mean, when you look at the side now, the backbone of the side is that first year of Sauce's draft with Wiedering, Curnow, and Harry and all these players. And yeah, no, it's just so good to see finally that they've got the belief. And yeah, I can only see blue skies from now on, hoping.
It has not occurred to me how you said that. The irony in Sauce, obviously, you know, being maybe we'll call it the whistleblower, and then when he comes back to the club as list manager, is responsible for arguably one of the best gifts in a draft that we've had in a long time, and hopefully they go on to be the backbone of a premiership team or, you know, multiple premiership teams. That's really interesting. What's the best team you've seen? Which of the Carlton iterations is the best team in your view?
For me, it would have been in that period from 79 to 82 when we had the Mosquito fleet. I mean, when you think about that period, if we hadn't had all that turmoil with Jezza when he left, and we had Percy Jones coaching us in 1980 instead of Jezza, I mean, we should have won 4 in a row that year because 1980, the one year we didn't win, with Percy, I think we were in the top 2 or top 3, and I think we went out in straight sets. So if
Yeah.
we'd had a good coach, then there's no reason why I couldn't have won 4 in a row.
So correct me if I'm wrong. So Jez is playing and coaching in 79.
Yeah.
And then what happens? He leaves in 80, or he steps down? What's the story?
Yeah, well, the president of the time, George Harris, had some problem with the board, and basically they sacked him, and Jezza supported him, and so he left, and then he went to St Kilda.
Okay. And then 81 and 82, what happened? Did we get more players in, or like how did we rise back up? I mean, we were still a good team. We just went out in straight sets the year before.
Well, 81 was when we got David Parkin, and so. And speaking of David Parkin, that's another thing I'd like to mention too. David Parkin is my stepmother's cousin, so I've been lucky enough to meet him a few times, and what a man! I mean, probably arguably Carlton's best ever coach. 3 premierships.
Got some Carlton royalty in that story of yours, mate. Yeah. So when you look at this team that we watch now, do they have any resemblance of the great teams, or early, it's very early in their story, but do you see anything from the current group that reminds you of one of the great teams you watched?
Yeah. All our midfield, I can see Walsh is sort of similar kind of player to what Bradley was, such a great runner. And then the Mosquito fleet was certainly starting to develop that now. And you can see, with Motlop and Owies and Durden and now getting I've forgotten his name, Orazio Fantasia too. I can see that. I'm really excited about that next year. I think if I can just get Fantasia onto the ground, I think he's gonna make a huge difference to the team.
Yeah. What do you think's missing? What do you think is left for them to add? Not necessarily a player, but what are some of the next layers that they've got to add to what they currently have in order to take that next step and go past the prelim and win a flag?
I'm really happy with the way Austin has been recruiting, and I think, like a lot of other people have said, I think we've more been missing some good link from the midfield to the forward line, and I've been so happy with who we've recruited this year. I think Elijah Hollins and who else? Moya. These players are just the sort of players we need. So I'm really excited about that. I just think the main thing we need is a good run with injuries. I mean, if we can get Marchbank, Zach Williams, and all these players, and Cunningham, who've had all these injury problems, if we can get them fit, I mean, I can't see why we can't go the whole way.
Yeah. Well, touch wood, don't want to jinx it, but I was at day one of preseason this week, and I tell you what, I don't remember going to a preseason session that early in the piece and seeing everyone out there, apart from a few names, but there isn't anybody right now that I can think of who's on that, that long. We've usually got a long-term injury at this time of year, or a couple that, won't be doing anything until after New Year. And yeah, I think, fingers crossed for health. They get through this, pre-Christmas block, get a really good foundation, hit the ground running. And yeah, I'm with you, and I guess every team, maybe not every team, but I think there's probably 8 to 10 teams that probably feel the same. If they just stay healthy, they're in with a shot. But there's something about this group. I have a feeling it's because of we finally got some stability, finally got some continuity in the list. We're not chopping and changing coaches and board members and assistants and that. And I can't help but feel like that can only be a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny, it's not just about the players that we've recruited that have helped. I think our best recruit we got was when we got Cookie to the club, and at the time I was just so excited because that, as you mentioned, stability. I mean, that has been such a huge problem, changing coaches whenever things are getting a bit tough, and that was it, sticking fat and keeping Voss. And I've heard on the grapevine that affected the players, the fact that they'd stuck with Voss, and it was like they wanted to do it for him. They seem to really love him, and yeah, it's so exciting, and I think really believe they've turned the corner because of it.
Well, the great Jeff Southby said that what makes a club successful is alignment with all the stakeholders. So when we are in a situation where the fans, the players, the admin, the board, when everyone's on the same page, that is only when you can really truly move forward. And I really do believe we've got it, but I'm not naive to understand that it's so hard to get and so easy to lose. So that's why I'm a bit cautious getting too ahead of myself. I'm trying to work on the art of humility with this club, but I still have that ultimate confidence in them. I think we've got everything. I mean, even if you look at the contract situations, everyone, all the really important key pieces are tied up, and I'm just hoping that this wait has been worth it, and we're about to enter an era, not just a couple of seasons, but a real generation of good quality, sustainable football.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the other thing too is you look back at the last time we had any sort of real success was when Rats was coaching, and we just missed out in the preliminary final. And you look at that rebuild then, we had basically a few first number one picks, but compare it to now. I mean, we've got such an incredible spine, and it's more of a full-blown rebuild this time. And yeah, that's the other thing that really excites me.
Yeah, we seem to go from the midfield out with the initial rebuild, and then this one we did the spine first, because midfielders, let's be honest, midfielders come every year.
Yeah.
Every year. Now, Sam Walsh is a bona fide number one pick. Really good, really great talent and work ethic. But I think for the most part, the strategy, you touched on it earlier with Nick Austin and I guess Sauce to an extent in the early days, it's definitely evolved. And I guess they've learnt their lesson, which is important as well. So I want to touch a little bit more on your game day experience. So you're watching from Japan. Run us through, what does game day look like? You're tuning in, like you're part of the Blue Abroad community as well. Like, what's your routine?
What's my routine? I'll listen to the radio and watch all the social media as well. And unfortunately, watching the game live, they only show it for like a few minutes before, and then it starts bang. So the first thing I'll do is get online and join Pommy's chat and then get into the game. The funniest thing though, because my wife is Japanese and she still can't get into understand why I yell at the TV and gets frustrated with all the neighbours with my yelling, but.
I've spent over 100 episodes doing this series, and I think lately I've only started picking up on the question of like, what is the essence of the club? Like, why do you think we get so passionate? Like, what is it about the club that makes us so intense? Particularly someone like you who's not even in the country. Like, why? What is it for you? What draws you to the club?
Wow. It's just a part of me. It's such a huge part of me. I mean, it's my life. I mean, since I was 5 years old. I mean, it's like a religion, and there's not many other things in my life that I have more passion for. You know, it's in my blood, and it's I think about it every day. It's such an important thing to. Yeah, it's such an important part of my life, and I just can't imagine life without it. You know,
Mate, I can relate completely. I guess humans are pretty tribal by nature. You know, we tend to move towards something which is greater than us that we can be a part of or belong to in a community sense or a tribe sense. But there's not many clubs that show the passion like we do. You know, it's just, I don't know. I mean, it would be wrong to say it's like the European passion, because you don't have to be European to feel it. People from all walks of the world feel it. It's just, I don't know. It's just one of those things, I guess.
Yeah, one of the other things that I really love about the footy is I feel it's like really, really good for the soul. You know, that's the one thing I really miss when you go to the footy. And if you've had a really tough week or something, you know, you had a really tough time, you can go to the footy and yell your lungs out, and it's like it's totally acceptable. It's fine. That's what you do when you go to the footy, and then you've let it all out. It's great. I mean, and I really miss that. That's one of the biggest things that I miss about it.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So, would you come back if we look to make another finals run in 2024?
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah. Problem is, though, I guess so hard to get tickets. But yeah, if I could, yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. Well, speaking of, final question: this group, when are they going to lift up their next cup?
Yeah. Well, it all goes down for me to, like I said before, injuries. If we can have a good run of injuries, I reckon we can do it this year. I think they'll have learnt a lot from last year, and yeah, I think the belief is the big thing that they got from this year. Yeah, this year, or if not this year, next year. I mean, yeah, there's luck. There's definitely luck there as well. If they can get a good run, I don't see why they can't do it.
Yeah, I like it. Well, mate, thanks so much for giving up some time to document your story. It's been a pleasure. It's actually flown. And yeah, wish you all the best. And thanks so much for your support over the years, and go Blues.
Thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun.